My name is Martha, I'm 67 years old, and I never thought my own son would exclude me from a family vacation. When Bradley and his wife Heather told me there wasn't enough room for me on their Disneyland trip with my grandchildren and 13 other relatives, I smiled and nodded. The pain cut deep, but I didn't argue. Instead, I made a decision that would shock them all on the fourth day of their magical vacation. I still remember their faces when I walked into that restaurant. Before I tell you what happened, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about standing up for yourself, even when it's your own family. I've been a widow for 8 years now. My husband George passed away after 42 years of marriage. Heart attack. It happened so suddenly that sometimes I still turn to tell him something before realizing he's not there. The house feels especially empty on Sunday evenings, which used to be our special time together. Bradley is my only child. I raised him mostly on my own after his father Thomas, and I divorced when Bradley was just 7 years old. Thomas moved across the country to Seattle and started a new family, barely keeping in touch. The child support checks came irregularly at first, then stopped altogether. I worked 2 jobs as an elementary school teacher during the day, and waitressing on weekends to make ends meet. Every spare minute went to making sure Bradley had what he needed, helping with homework, attending his soccer games, and making our small apartment feel like a proper home. Despite the financial struggles, Bradley thrived. He was always bright, especially with computers. I remember saving for months to buy him his first desktop computer when he was 14. He took that thing apart and put it back together within a week. I didn't understand what he was doing, but I knew it was important to support his passion. That investment paid off when he earned a partial scholarship to study computer science at the State University. Now Bradley is 42 and a successful software engineer at a large tech company. I couldn't be prouder of what he's accomplished. He has a beautiful home in an upscale neighborhood, a far cry from our modest apartment where he grew up. Sometimes I think he's forgotten those early days when it was just the 2 of us against the world. Bradley met Heather during his final year of college. She was studying marketing, came from a wealthy family, and had the kind of polished confidence that comes from never having to worry about money. Initially, I was concerned they were too different, but Heather seemed to genuinely love my son. When they got married 12 years ago, I was thrilled to welcome her into our small family. The early years were wonderful. I tried to be the mother-in-law I never had, giving them space while being supportive. When they announced they were expecting their first child, Lily, I cried tears of joy. Then came Max 2 years later, and finally little Ella 5 years ago. My grandchildren became the center of my world. For years, our routine was comfortable. Sunday dinners at their house, occasional babysitting when they needed a date night, and holiday celebrations together. I was careful not to overstep, always calling before visiting, bringing small gifts but nothing extravagant that might make Heather feel I was competing for the children's affection. But something shifted about 4 years ago. Heather's responses to my offers to help became increasingly polite, but distant. The Sunday dinner invitations became less frequent, and when I did visit, conversations felt strained. Heather would check her phone more often or suddenly remember errands that needed to be run, leaving me with Bradley and the kids. "Mom, Heather's just busy with her promotion at work," Bradley would explain, but I recognized the growing distance. Still, I persisted in maintaining our relationship, sending thoughtful texts, remembering important dates, and always being available when they needed me. I live modestly in the same 3-bedroom house Bradley grew up in. The mortgage is paid off, and my teacher's pension covers my basic needs. I'm not wealthy by any means, but I'm comfortable. I've always been careful with money, a habit formed during those lean years as a single mother. While my friends splurged on cruises or redecorated their homes, I tucked away money for Bradley's college fund and later for gifts for my grandchildren. Travel has always been my secret passion. I have a map in my bedroom with pins marking all the places I dream of visiting: Paris, Rome, Tokyo, Sydney. So far, most of the pins represent dreams rather than memories. I'd planned to travel with George in retirement, but after he passed, those dreams were set aside. Instead, I focused on being there for Bradley's family, putting money toward Christmas and birthday presents for the grandchildren rather than plane tickets for myself. You really should take that trip to Italy you're always talking about, Martha, my friend Diana would say during our weekly coffee dates. Maybe next year, was always my reply. Lily needs a new laptop for school, and I want to help out. That's just who I am. Family first, dreams second. At least that's who I was until that Sunday dinner when everything changed. It was a typical Sunday in April when I arrived at Bradley and Heather's home for our weekly dinner. The weather had just begun to warm, and the children were playing in the backyard when I pulled into the driveway. I brought a homemade apple pie, still warm from the oven, Ella's favorite. Grandma's here, Lily called out, running to greet me with Max and Ella close behind. These moments were precious to me, their small arms wrapping around my waist, their faces looking up with genuine delight at my arrival. The dinner was delicious as always. Heather was an excellent cook, something I had always complimented her on. As we finished the main course, Bradley cleared his throat in that way he does when he has an announcement. So we've been planning something special, he began, smiling at the children who suddenly perked up with excitement. We're going to Disneyland this summer. 2 full weeks in July. The children erupted in cheers, and I felt myself smiling broadly. Disneyland had been on my wish list for years, not for myself but to experience it with my grandchildren. I'd even set aside a small fund specifically for such a trip, imagining the wonder on their faces when they saw the castle for the first time. That sounds wonderful, I said, genuinely happy for them. When exactly in July? I should mark my calendar. I assumed, naturally, that I would be included. After all, I'd often spoken about wanting to take the grandchildren to Disneyland someday. That's when I noticed the awkward silence that fell over the table. Bradley and Heather exchanged a look, one of those married couple glances that communicates volumes without a word. Well, we're leaving on the 10th, Bradley said, his eyes not quite meeting mine. We've rented a huge house near the park. It's going to be quite a group. Oh, I asked, still not sensing what was coming. Who all is going? Heather took a sip of her wine before answering. My parents, of course. And Bradley's cousins Scott and Jessica with their kids. And Jessica's sister Amanda with her family. 14 of us all together. I nodded, mentally adding myself to make 15. That sounds like a wonderful group. The kids will have so many playmates. Another uncomfortable silence followed. The children had already left the table to play, leaving just the 3 of us adults in that increasingly tense atmosphere. So, should I book my flight separately? Or are we all going together? I finally asked directly. Bradley shifted in his seat, looking down at his plate. Mom, I don't think. I mean, the house is pretty full already. The sleeping arrangements are really tight, Heather added quickly. We just wouldn't have enough room for everyone. I felt my heart sink as the realization dawned on me. They weren't including me in their plans. I see, I said quietly. How many bedrooms does this house have? 7, Bradley replied, then immediately seemed to realize the problem with his answer. A house with 7 bedrooms claiming to have no room for one more person. But the rooms are small, Heather added hastily. And we've already assigned everyone. My parents are bringing their friends Paul and Linda too. I forgot to mention them. I've never been good at hiding my emotions, but decades of teaching had given me some practice at maintaining composure when needed. I forced a smile. Of course I understand. It sounds like you have it all arranged. I'm sure you'll have a wonderful time. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. I helped clear the table, listened to Lily's story about her school project, and gave each grandchild a tight hug before leaving. I maintained that forced smile until I was in my car, driving away from their perfectly manicured lawn and elegant 2-story home. The tears came once I was alone on the highway. They blurred my vision so badly that I had to pull over onto the shoulder. I sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, feeling a pain in my chest that reminded me of the days after George died. This was a different kind of loss, but it hurt just the same. When I finally arrived home, I went straight to the cedar chest in my bedroom where I keep family photos. I pulled out albums from Bradley's childhood, tracing my finger over pictures of birthday parties, school plays, and camping trips. Just the 2 of us in most photos, smiling at the camera. When had that closeness slipped away? I found more recent photos of the grandchildren, their gap-toothed smiles and birthday celebrations. Would they even miss me on their Disneyland adventure? Would they wonder why Grandma wasn't there to see Mickey Mouse with them? That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, contemplating calling Bradley to express my hurt feelings. But what would that accomplish? Make him feel guilty? Force an uncomfortable invitation? Create tension between him and Heather? None of those options seemed right. No, I decided I wouldn't confront them or make a scene. That wasn't my style. But as I finally drifted off to sleep, a seed had been planted in my mind. One that would grow into a decision that would surprise everyone, including myself. Looking back, I realized this wasn't the first time I'd felt deliberately excluded. There was last Thanksgiving when they went to Heather's parents' lake house instead of our usual gathering. And the spring break trip to Heather's sister's beach house where there wasn't enough room for extended family. The pattern was clear now, though I'd been too willing to accept excuses before. This time would be different. I just didn't know how yet. The trip wasn't scheduled until July, but preparations began immediately. My social media feeds became filled with their excitement. Heather posted about shopping for matching family t-shirts. Bradley shared links to Disneyland planning websites. The children's countdown calendar appeared in photos, each day being crossed off with growing anticipation. I dutifully liked each post, sometimes adding encouraging comments like, "Can't wait to see all the photos," or, "The children will remember this forever." Each keystroke felt like a small cut to my heart, but I maintained the supportive grandmother role I'd always played. Then came the photos of Heather's parents, Carol and Richard, shopping for special gifts for their grandchildren to open each day of the trip. They were prominent in many posts, their involvement in planning clearly valued and celebrated. Carol was helping choose outfits while Richard researched the best attractions for each child's age. They were doing exactly what I would have loved to do. "Look at these adorable Mickey ears Nana Carol got for Ella," read one caption under a photo of my youngest grandchild beaming in her new headband. Nana Carol, not Grandma Martha. The distinction felt significant. One evening my phone rang with Lily's ringtone, a special sound I'd assigned just for her calls. My heart leapt as I answered. "Grandma, guess what? Dad says I can bring my special journal to Disneyland to record everything we do each day." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I replied, genuinely happy to hear her excitement. "You'll have so many amazing things to write about." "I wish you were coming with us," she said suddenly, her voice dropping to a more serious tone. "I told Mom it would be more fun if you were there." I swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. "That's very sweet of you, Lily. But sometimes trips have limited space, and I'm sure you'll have a magical time with everyone who's going." "But Nana Carol snores really loud," Lily whispered conspiratorially. "Last time we had to share a room I couldn't sleep." I couldn't help but laugh even as my eyes filled with tears. "Well, I'm sure you'll figure something out. Maybe earplugs." After we hung up, I sat staring at the phone for a long while. At least Lily had wanted me there. That meant something. The following day, I met my friend Diana for our weekly coffee at our favorite local cafe. Diana and I had been friends since our teaching days, and she was one of the few people I felt comfortable being completely honest with. "They said there wasn't enough room," I explained, stirring my coffee absently. "In a 7-bedroom house with 14 people. Somehow there wasn't room for one more." Diana's eyebrows shot up. "And you believed that flimsy excuse? What else could I do?" I shrugged, trying to appear less hurt than I felt. "You could stand up for yourself, Martha," Diana said firmly. "Call Bradley and tell him how hurt you are. Ask him directly why you're being excluded." I shook my head. "And put him in an awkward position between me and Heather? Create drama that will only make things worse? No, I don't want to be that kind of mother-in-law." "Being honest about your feelings isn't being dramatic," Diana countered. "It's being human." Perhaps she was right, but confrontation had never been my strong suit. I changed the subject, asking about her granddaughter's recent dance recital instead. Later that week, I called my sister Nancy, who lives in Arizona. Nancy is 3 years older than me and has always been forthright where I tend to be conciliatory. "It's Heather," Nancy declared after hearing my story. "She's deliberately creating distance between you and Bradley's family. I've seen it before with my friend Judith's daughter-in-law." I don't want to blame Heather, I said, though the thought had crossed my mind. Maybe they really did run out of room. Nancy made a scoffing sound. Martha, you've always been too willing to believe the best of people, even when the evidence says otherwise. Think about it. Has there been a pattern of you being excluded? As I considered her question, memories surfaced that I'd previously dismissed. Max's school play last fall, when I was told about it the day after it happened. Oh, we thought you wouldn't want to drive across town in the evening, Bradley had explained. The Christmas card photo shoot I wasn't invited to. The weekend trips to visit Heather's family where my invitation somehow never materialized. You might be right, I admitted reluctantly. Of course I'm right, Nancy said. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What indeed? For the first time I allowed myself to feel not just hurt but indignant. I had been a devoted mother and grandmother. I had never interfered in their marriage or criticized their parenting. I had maintained appropriate boundaries and been consistently supportive. What had I done to deserve this exclusion? Nothing, I realized. I had done nothing wrong. And perhaps that was liberating in its way. If I wasn't being excluded for some failure on my part, then I didn't need to fix anything about myself. The problem lay elsewhere. As the trip drew closer, I noticed my grandchildren's increasing excitement during our weekly video calls. Ella showed me her Disneyland countdown calendar with 17 days left. Max described in detail the Star Wars attractions he couldn't wait to experience. Lily asked thoughtful questions about whether I'd ever been to Disneyland. No, sweetheart, I told her. It was always a dream of mine to go there with you children someday. The wistfulness in my voice must have been apparent because Lily's face grew serious. Maybe you can come next time, Grandma. Next time. Those two words lingered in my mind long after our call ended. Would there be a next time? Or would there always be some reason why Grandma Martha couldn't be included? As I prepared for bed that night, I caught my reflection in the bathroom mirror. I looked tired, my silver hair pulled back in its usual practical style, my face showing the years of both joy and hardship. For a moment I hardly recognized myself. Where was the woman who had once been strong enough to raise a child alone, build a career and face life's challenges head-on? She was still there, I realized. Just buried under years of accommodation and peaceful compromise. Maybe it was time for that woman to resurface. That night, a plan began to form in my mind. Not a confrontation, not a guilt trip, but something entirely unexpected. Something that would require courage I wasn't sure I still possessed. I fell asleep thinking of Disneyland, but not as an excluded grandmother, as something else entirely. The next morning, I woke with an unusual sense of purpose. Instead of my typical routine of coffee and crossword puzzles, I went straight to my computer. I'd never been particularly tech-savvy, but I'd learned enough from Bradley over the years to navigate online research. I typed Disneyland luxury accommodations into the search bar. The results were overwhelming at first. Dozens of hotels with varying proximity to the park and amenities. I narrowed my search to the most upscale options, eventually focusing on the Grand Californian Hotel and Spa, a stunning property located inside the park itself. The prices made me gasp. A standard room was expensive enough, but the suites with theme park views were astronomical. I almost closed the browser then, the practical part of my mind chiding me for even considering such extravagance. But something stopped me. I opened a new tab and logged into my online banking account. There it was, my savings account with its modest but steady balance. The account I'd labeled Grandchildren College Fund contained $25,000, accumulated over years of careful saving. Every birthday and Christmas, instead of extravagant gifts, I'd put money aside for their future education. Was I really considering using some of this money for myself? The thought felt almost sacrilegious. I'd never been one to indulge in luxury, always prioritizing practicality and saving for the future. I stared at the screen for a long time, conflicting thoughts racing through my mind. Then I remembered something my late husband George used to say. Martha, you can't pour from an empty cup. He'd often encouraged me to treat myself, but I rarely listened, always finding something more important, more practical to spend money on. I picked up the phone and called Rebecca, my financial advisor. Rebecca had helped me manage my modest investments since George's passing. "Martha," she greeted me warmly. "This is unexpected. Everything okay with your accounts?" "Yes, everything's fine," I assured her. "I'm just considering making a withdrawal from my savings. A significant one." "May I ask what for?" Rebecca asked, no judgment in her voice, just professional interest. "A trip," I said, the words feeling strange as I spoke them. "For myself. To Disneyland, actually." There was a brief pause before Rebecca responded. "Well, your accounts are in good shape. Your pension covers your living expenses, and you've always been a careful saver. May I ask why this trip is important to you?" I found myself explaining the whole situation, the words pouring out more easily than I expected. Rebecca listened without interruption. "Martha," she said when I finished, "from a financial perspective, you can absolutely afford this trip. You've been saving diligently for years. Using some of those savings for yourself isn't irresponsible, especially given the circumstances." Her validation was surprisingly emotional for me. "Thank you," I managed to say. "How much were you thinking of withdrawing?" she asked. I'd done some calculations. 15,000 should cover everything I have in mind. "I'll arrange the transfer to your checking account today," Rebecca said. "And Martha? Enjoy every minute." After hanging up, I returned to the Disneyland website with renewed determination. I booked a one-bedroom suite at the Grand Californian for 5 nights, overlapping with the final days of Bradley's family trip. The suite featured a separate bedroom, a spacious living area, and a private balcony overlooking the park. The confirmation email made my heart race with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Next, I researched VIP experiences at Disneyland. I discovered their premium VIP tour guide service, which would allow me to navigate the park efficiently, skip lines, and access exclusive viewing areas for parades and shows. The price was steep, but I booked it for 3 days. I also arranged for special experiences for each grandchild based on their interests. For Max, a Star Wars character breakfast. For Lily, a princess makeover at the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. For Ella, a special meet and greet with her favorite Disney characters. I booked a first-class round-trip flight, something I'd never experienced before. I even scheduled a car service to take me from the airport to the hotel, rather than trying to navigate public transportation in an unfamiliar city. As I made each reservation, I felt a curious mixture of guilt and liberation. Was this selfish? Was I spending too much? But then I'd remember Bradley's casual dismissal, the not enough room excuse, and my resolve would strengthen. I went shopping for new clothes, something I rarely did for myself. I selected comfortable but stylish outfits appropriate for the park, an elegant dinner dress, and even a new swimsuit for the hotel pool. I visited a department store makeup counter, where a kind young woman helped me select products that enhanced rather than masked my age. "You're going to look amazing," she assured me as she demonstrated how to apply a subtle blush to my cheeks. I scheduled an appointment at an upscale salon for a haircut and style the week before my trip. My hair had been in the same practical bob for years, and I was ready for something fresh but age-appropriate. Through all these preparations, I told no one in my family about my plans. Not Bradley, not Heather, not even the grandchildren, though keeping secrets from them was the hardest part. I wanted the element of surprise to be complete. Diana was the only friend I confided in. "Martha Wilson," she exclaimed when I told her my plans over coffee. "I never thought I'd see the day when you'd do something so deliciously audacious. Is it too much?" I asked, second-guessing myself. "Will it seem petty or vindictive?" Diana shook her head firmly. "It's not petty to stand up for yourself. You're not doing anything to harm them or ruin their trip. You're simply refusing to be sidelined. I think it's brilliant." As the weeks passed and July approached, my anticipation grew. I practiced what I would say when I appeared at Disneyland. I rehearsed calm, dignified responses to potential reactions. I visualized the joy on my grandchildren's faces when they saw me. The night before my departure, I stood in front of my bedroom mirror, taking in my new haircut, the subtle makeup I'd learned to apply, and the stylish travel outfit I'd selected for the flight. I barely recognized the woman looking back at me, not because of the superficial changes, but because of the confidence in her eyes. "Well, Martha," I said to my reflection, "let's see what you're made of." My alarm went off at 4:30 in the morning on the day of my flight. I'd barely slept, a combination of excitement and nervousness keeping me awake most of the night. Despite my fatigue, I felt energized as I showered and dressed in the travel outfit I'd carefully selected, a comfortable but stylish navy blue pantsuit with a silk scarf adding a touch of color. The taxi arrived precisely on time to take me to the airport. As we pulled away from my house, I felt a momentary pang of doubt. Was I really doing this? Was it too dramatic, too unlike me? But then I remembered the look on Bradley's face when he told me there wasn't enough room. And my resolve returned. The airport was bustling even at that early hour. I checked my single suitcase, making my way through security with the efficiency of someone who had practiced the process mentally several times. When I reached the first-class lounge, a new experience for me, I was greeted with a warm smile and offered coffee and breakfast. "First time in first class?" the attendant asked, noticing perhaps my wide-eyed appreciation of the comfortable seating and complimentary amenities. "Is it that obvious?" I laughed. "Only in the best way," she assured me. "You're appreciating everything, unlike our regulars who take it all for granted." The flight itself was a revelation. The spacious seat, the attentive service, the quality of the meal served on actual china with real silverware, all made me understand why people paid a premium for this experience. I sipped champagne, something I rarely indulged in, and watched the landscape below transform from the familiar to the unknown. When we landed in California, I felt a world away from my modest home in Wisconsin. The sunshine seemed brighter, the air warmer and fragrant with unfamiliar flowers. The car service driver was waiting for me at baggage claim, holding a sign with Mrs. Wilson printed on it, another first being picked up by a chauffeur. "Welcome to California, Mrs. Wilson," he said, taking my suitcase. "First visit?" "Yes," I replied. "My first time in California and my first time at Disneyland." "Well, you've chosen a beautiful time to visit," he said as he led me to a sleek black sedan. "And the Grand Californian is the perfect hotel for a first-time visitor. You'll be right in the middle of everything." The drive from the airport to Anaheim passed quickly as I took in the palm trees and distinctive architecture so different from my Midwestern surroundings. My nervousness returned as we approached the hotel. What if Bradley and his family saw me arriving? I wasn't ready for that confrontation yet, not until I was settled and had gathered my courage. But fortune was with me. We arrived at the Grand Californian without incident, its impressive timber and stone exterior reminiscent of the great national park lodges, but with distinctly Disney touches. The lobby took my breath away. Soaring ceilings with exposed wooden beams, a massive stone fireplace, and craftsman-style lighting fixtures creating an atmosphere of rustic luxury. "Welcome to the Grand Californian, Mrs. Wilson," the front desk attendant greeted me. "We've been expecting you. I see you've booked one of our premium one-bedroom suites." "Yes," I said, still amazed at my own audacity. "It's a special occasion." "Well, we're delighted to have you with us. Michael will show you to your suite and explain all its features." Michael, a young man in an impeccable uniform, led me through the elegant lobby to an elevator. As we ascended, he pointed out various amenities of the hotel, including its 3 pools, multiple restaurants, and direct entrance to the Disney California Adventure Park. When he opened the door to my suite, I had to suppress a gasp. The spacious living room featured craftsman-style furniture, a dining area, and floor-to-ceiling windows with a breathtaking view of the park. Through the windows I could see the iconic Ferris wheel and various attractions, all bathed in the golden California sunshine. "The bedroom is through here," Michael continued, leading me to an equally impressive space with a king-sized bed dressed in luxurious linens. "And your private balcony offers one of the best views in the hotel." After Michael left, I stood in the middle of the suite, taking it all in. The accommodations were more luxurious than anywhere I'd ever stayed. Certainly a far cry from the budget motels of family vacations during Bradley's childhood. For a moment I felt out of place, as if someone might discover I didn't belong in such opulence. But then I reminded myself that I had worked hard all my life, saved carefully, and deserved this experience. I unpacked my suitcase, hanging my carefully selected outfits in the spacious closet. Then I took out my phone and, heart-pounding, sent a text to Bradley. "Hope you're all having a wonderful time at Disneyland. What are your plans for today?" His response came quickly. "Hi Mom. All good here. Taking kids to lunch at Carnation Cafe on Main Street at 1 p.m., then exploring Fantasyland this afternoon." Perfect. I now knew exactly where they would be. I checked my watch, 11:30. I had time to freshen up and make my way to the park. I changed into a comfortable but stylish outfit, applied my new makeup with care, and styled my freshly cut hair. Looking in the mirror, I saw not just the external changes but a new confidence in my expression. I was ready. The private entrance from the hotel directly into the Disney California Adventure Park was another perk of staying at the Grand Californian. With my park hopper pass in hand, I made my way through security and into the magical world of Disney. Despite my mission, I couldn't help but be charmed by the sights and sounds around me. The attention to detail, the music, the carefully crafted atmosphere all worked their spell even on this 67-year-old grandmother. I understood immediately why my grandchildren had been so excited about this trip. I made my way from Disney California Adventure to Disneyland proper, following the signs to Main Street. As I approached the Carnation Cafe, I spotted them immediately at a large table on the outdoor patio. Bradley, Heather, all three grandchildren, Heather's parents Carol and Richard, and several others I recognized as the extended family members who had been deemed more important to include than myself. For a moment I hesitated, my courage faltering. But then little Ella looked up, her eyes scanning the passing crowd, and suddenly locked onto mine. Her face lit up with a mixture of shock and delight. "Grandma!" she shrieked, leaping from her chair and running toward me, weaving through tables and startled diners. All heads at their table turned in my direction as Ella launched herself into my arms. Max and Lily spotted me next. Their expressions of surprise quickly transformed into joy as they too jumped up and ran to me. "Grandma Martha, what are you doing here?" Max asked, wrapping his arms around my waist. "Surprise," I said, my voice steadier than I felt as I hugged all three grandchildren at once. I decided to join the Disney fun. By now, Bradley and Heather had risen from their seats and were making their way toward us, their expressions a complex mixture of shock, confusion, and in Heather's case, what appeared to be annoyance. "Mom," Bradley said, his voice pitched higher than normal. "What? How? I don't understand." I smiled as calmly as I could. "Hello, Bradley. Heather. Beautiful day for Disneyland, isn't it?" "But when did you?" Bradley stammered. "I arrived this morning," I explained. "I'm staying at the Grand Californian. I have a lovely suite with a view of the park." Heather's parents had approached now, along with the other family members. Carol's eyebrows were raised nearly to her hairline, while Richard looked distinctly uncomfortable. "Martha," Carol said, her tone carefully modulated. "What a surprise." "Yes," I agreed pleasantly. I thought it would be fun to surprise the children. They've been so excited about this trip, and I didn't want to miss seeing their faces when they experienced the magic of Disney for the first time. "Can Grandma eat lunch with us?" Lily asked, tugging on Bradley's sleeve. Bradley looked at Heather, that silent married communication passing between them again. "Of course she can," he finally said, though his smile seemed forced. "We'll get another chair." Lunch was a tense affair, at least among the adults. The children were delighted, eagerly telling me about everything they'd seen and done in the previous 3 days. The extended family members, Bradley's cousins and their spouses, seemed unsure how to react, offering polite smiles but saying little. "So you're staying at the Grand Californian?" Heather's mother asked, a note of something that might have been envy in her voice. "That's the luxury hotel, isn't it?" "Yes," I confirmed. I decided to treat myself. I've never been to Disneyland before, so I thought I might as well make it special. "And how long will you be staying?" Heather asked, her first direct question to me. 5 nights, I replied. "I arrived today and I'll be leaving Tuesday." "We're leaving Monday," Bradley pointed out. "So you'll be here alone on your last day." "That's fine," I said with a genuine smile. "I'm quite comfortable on my own." As lunch concluded, I made my move. "Children," I said to my grandchildren, How would you like to stay in Grandma's suite tonight? It has a pull-out sofa bed in the living room, and I thought we could have a special grandchildren sleepover. Their enthusiasm was immediate and vocal. Can we, Dad? Please. Mochspecht. Bradley looked stunned by this development. I don't know. Please, Daddy. Ella added, her small face earnest. I want to stay with Grandma. We've already paid for the rental house, Heather interjected. It doesn't make sense to. Oh, I insist, I said smoothly. It would mean so much to me. And my suite is quite spacious, with a beautiful view of the fireworks at night. In the end, the children's pleas won out, though not without obvious reluctance from Heather. It was agreed that Bradley would bring them and their overnight things to my hotel after dinner. As we parted ways, I could feel Bradley's eyes on my back. I'd accomplished the first part of my plan, making my presence known. But the real conversation was yet to come. Bradley arrived at my suite promptly at 8 o'clock that evening with the children and their overnight bags. They were still buzzing with excitement from the day's adventures, and the prospect of staying in what Lily had dubbed Grandma's fancy castle room. Wow, Max exclaimed as he explored the suite. This is way nicer than the house we're staying at. Bradley shot him a look that I pretended not to notice. The children were quickly distracted by the view from the balcony, where they could see the preparations for the evening fireworks show. Kids, why don't you unpack your pajamas and get settled in the living room? I suggested. I think there might be some special Mickey Mouse chocolates on your pillows. As they rushed to investigate, Bradley gestured toward the balcony. Mom, can we talk for a minute? I nodded, following him outside and closing the glass door behind us for privacy. The summer evening was warm, the air filled with the sounds of the park below and the distant strains of Disney music. Bradley didn't waste time with pleasantries. What are you doing here, Mom? He asked, his voice low but intense. You're making Heather incredibly uncomfortable. I met his gaze steadily. I'm experiencing Disneyland with my grandchildren, something I've always wanted to do. Why would that make Heather uncomfortable? Bradley ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized from his childhood when he was frustrated. You know why. We had this all planned out, and now you've just shown up and disrupted everything. Disrupted what exactly? I asked calmly. The children seem happy to see me. I'm not interfering with your schedule or plans. That's not the point, Bradley insisted. The point is that you weren't invited, and now you've put us in an awkward position. The words stung, but I kept my composure. Bradley, do you remember telling me there wasn't enough room for me on this trip? In a 7-bedroom house with 14 people? He had the grace to look embarrassed. It's complicated, Mom. Then uncomplicate it for me, I said. Tell me the real reason I wasn't invited to join my only son and my grandchildren on a family vacation. Bradley sighed deeply, leaning against the balcony railing. Heather thought. She felt that you can be controlling. Controlling? I echoed, genuinely surprised. In what way have I ever tried to control your family? It's not big things, he said, not meeting my eyes. It's little comments about how the kids are dressed, or suggestions about their education, or bringing food to our house when Heather has already planned the meal. I was speechless for a moment, my mind racing through years of interactions, trying to identify these offenses. Bradley, if I've ever overstepped, it was never intentional. I've always tried to be respectful of your family's boundaries. I know that, he admitted. But Heather is sensitive about these things. She feels like you're judging her parenting or her housekeeping. Have I ever said anything critical about her parenting? I asked. Not directly, but... He trailed off, apparently unable to provide specific examples. So instead of having an honest conversation with me about her concerns, the solution was to exclude me from family events? To make up transparent excuses about space. Bradley at least had the decency to look ashamed. I should have handled it better. I'm caught in the middle here, Mom. I love you and I love my wife. It's not easy. No, I suppose it isn't, I acknowledged. But dishonesty is never the right approach. If there are issues between Heather and me, I would have preferred to address them directly. Heather doesn't do confrontation well, Bradley said. which struck me as ironic given the current situation. "And what about you?" I asked gently. "Do you also find me controlling? Do you also want me at a distance from your family?" His expression softened. "No, Mom. I've never felt that way. You've always been supportive without being intrusive. I should have stood up for you more." This admission brought unexpected tears to my eyes, which I quickly blinked away. "Thank you for being honest, finally." From inside the suite, we heard the children calling that the fireworks were about to start. Bradley glanced through the glass door. "I should go. Heather will be expecting me back." "Before you go," I said, "I want you to know something. I'm not here to cause problems or create drama. I'm here because I love my grandchildren and wanted to share this experience with them. That's all." Bradley nodded slowly. "I understand. And Mom, that new haircut looks really nice on you." After he left, I rejoined the children on the balcony to watch the spectacular fireworks display. As the colorful explosions lit up the night sky, Ella nestled against me, her small head resting on my shoulder. "I'm glad you're here, Grandma," she whispered. "Me too, sweetheart," I replied, my heart full despite the complicated emotions of the day. "Me too." The next morning, as we enjoyed breakfast on our balcony, my phone chimed with a text from Bradley. "Heather's parents overheard our conversation last night and felt bad about the situation. They're at the rental house pool today if you want to bring the kids back around too." I showed the message to the children. "What do you think? Should we go to the pool this afternoon? Can we go on some rides first?" Max asked. "You haven't seen any of the good stuff yet, Grandma." "Actually," I said, "I have a surprise. I've arranged for a VIP tour guide to take us around the park today. We'll be able to skip most of the lines and see all the best attractions." Their excitement was immediate and vocal. As we prepared to head to the park, I sent a quick reply to Bradley. "Thanks for the invitation. We'll stop by the pool later. The children and I have a VIP tour this morning." Our VIP guide, a cheerful young woman named Ashley, met us in the hotel lobby. She explained how the day would work, the special access we would have, and asked about everyone's preferred attractions. "Can we go to Star Wars, Galaxy's Edge first?" Max asked eagerly. "Dad said the lines are always super long, but we have to go there." "Absolutely," Ashley confirmed. "With your VIP access, we'll be able to experience all the Star Wars attractions with minimal waiting." The morning was magical in every sense. Through Ashley's expert guidance, we experienced more of the park in a few hours than most visitors would see in days. The children were thrilled by the special treatment, proudly explaining to other guests who asked that our grandma got us a special guide. Around noon, I received another text from Bradley. "Kids having fun? Everyone at the house is curious about this VIP tour." I smiled to myself before replying. "They're having a wonderful time. The tour includes up to 10 people. You're all welcome to join us after lunch if you'd like." There was a long pause before his response came through. "Seriously? All of us?" "Of course," I typed back. "Ashley says it's no problem. We'll be at Pirates of the Caribbean at 1:30 if you want to meet us." When we arrived at the designated meeting spot, I was surprised to see not just Bradley waiting, but Heather and her parents as well, along with several of the cousins and their children. "Is this your family, Mrs. Wilson?" Ashley asked as we approached the group. "Yes," I said with a genuine smile. "It seems they'd like to join our tour if that's possible." "Of course," Ashley confirmed. "Your VIP package allows for up to 10 guests. We'll just need to make a quick adjustment to our itinerary to accommodate everyone's preferences." Heather approached me while Ashley was speaking with the rest of the group. Her expression was difficult to read. A mixture of embarrassment and something that might have been respect. "This is very generous of you, Martha," she said quietly. "The VIP tour must be expensive." "It's my pleasure," I replied sincerely. "This trip is about creating memories with family after all." She had the grace to look slightly ashamed at this gentle reminder. About that, I may have been overly concerned about certain aspects of our relationship. It wasn't quite an apology, but it was more than I had expected. "Perhaps when we're back home we could have coffee and talk," I suggested. "Just the two of us." Heather nodded. seeming relieved by this reasonable suggestion. I'd like that. The rest of the day passed in a blur of shared experiences, laughter, and the kind of joy that can only come from seeing beloved places through the eyes of children. The VIP access transformed what could have been a day of standing in long lines under the hot sun into a seamless adventure through the most magical attractions the park had to offer. I noticed Bradley watching me throughout the day, particularly in moments when I was interacting with the children. During a brief moment alone while the others were watching a street performance, he approached me. "You're really good with them, Mom," he said softly. "I sometimes forget how much they adore you." "They're wonderful children," I replied. "You and Heather have done a great job raising them." He seemed surprised by this compliment to his wife. "Thank you for saying that. I know things between you and Heather have been complicated." "Relationships often are," I acknowledged. "But they can improve with honest communication and good intentions on both sides." As the day drew to a close, I found myself standing next to Heather's father Richard as we watched the children pose for photos with the Disney character. "That was quite a power move, Martha," he said unexpectedly, a hint of admiration in his voice, showing up with the luxury suite and VIP tour. I laughed, surprising myself with how light I felt. "It wasn't intended as a power move, Richard. It was about not accepting exclusion from my family's lives." He nodded thoughtfully. "Carol and I should have said something when we realized you weren't invited. It didn't sit right, but we didn't want to interfere." "I appreciate that," I said. "Sometimes it takes a dramatic gesture to break through entrenched patterns." As we prepared to part ways for the evening, the children begged to stay another night in my suite. To my surprise, Heather agreed without hesitation. "They've been talking about that view of the fireworks all day," she explained. "And they said your sofa bed is more comfortable than their beds at the rental house." I smiled, knowing that this small concession represented a significant shift. "They're welcome anytime. My door is always open to them." As Bradley dropped off the children's overnight bags for the second night, he lingered for a moment. "Mom, I'm sorry," he said simply. "I should have stood up for you." "Yes, you should have," I agreed. "But what matters now is moving forward with more honesty." He nodded, relief evident in his expression. "I promise to do better." And somehow, despite the complicated emotions and difficult conversations, I believed him. The remaining days of our overlapping Disney adventure passed in a whirlwind of rides, shows, character meetings, and magical moments. The initial tension gradually dissolved, replaced by a new understanding that, while not perfect, felt like progress. On our final full day together before the rest of the family would return home, I had arranged special experiences for each grandchild. For Max, the Star Wars character breakfast left him speechless with excitement as Chewbacca sat down at our table. For Lily, the princess makeover at the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique transformed her into a glittering version of her favorite princess. For little Ella, a private meet and greet with Mickey and Minnie resulted in hugs and photos that I knew would be treasured for years. Bradley joined us for the character breakfast, watching with visible emotion as Max's face lit up with each character interaction. During a quiet moment while the children were distracted, he turned to me. "You know, Mom, seeing you with the kids these past few days has reminded me of how you were with me when I was growing up," he said. "You always found ways to make special moments, even when money was tight." "Those are the memories that last," I replied. "Not the things we have, but the experiences we share." "I never thanked you properly," Bradley continued, his voice thick with feeling, "for all the sacrifices you made. The extra jobs, the small apartment so I could attend that better school district, the holidays when you gave up things you wanted so I could have something special." I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. "That's what parents do, Bradley. We put our children first." "I haven't been putting you first," he admitted. "I've been caught between Heather's wishes and what I know is right. It's been easier to go along with her than to stand firm. Marriage requires compromise," I acknowledged, "but not at the expense of other important relationships." "I know that now," he said. "When I saw how happy the kids were to see you, how naturally you fit into this vacation that we tried to exclude you from, it made me realize how wrong we were. It was a moment of genuine connection, the kind we hadn't shared in too long." I felt the wall between us beginning to crumble, not completely, but enough to let light through. That afternoon, Heather approached me while the children were playing in the hotel pool with Bradley. "Martha," she began, seeming uncharacteristically hesitant. "I want to apologize for how we handled the invitation to this trip. It wasn't fair to you." I appreciated her directness. "Thank you for saying that, Heather. I've had some concerns about our relationship," she continued carefully. "I sometimes felt like you were judging my parenting or my housekeeping, and instead of addressing it directly, I created distance. I never intended to make you feel judged," I said honestly. "If I've overstepped, I'm sorry. I only ever wanted to be supportive." Heather nodded slowly. "I believe that now. Watching you with the children these past few days, I can see how much you love them, how you want what's best for them just like I do." "We both want the same thing," I agreed. "A happy, healthy family." "When we get home," Heather said, "I'd like to start fresh. Maybe we could do regular lunches, just the two of us? Get to know each other better without assumptions or old tensions." It was an olive branch I was more than willing to accept. I'd like that very much. That evening, our last together before they would return home the next day, we gathered as an extended family for dinner at one of the upscale restaurants in downtown Disney. The atmosphere was relaxed, the conversation flowing more naturally than it had at that first awkward lunch. Even Heather's parents seemed to have warmed to me, with Carol asking about my travel plans and Richard sharing stories of his own childhood visits to Disneyland. As we walked back to the hotel after dinner, Lily slipped her hand into mine. "Grandma, this has been the best vacation ever, because you were here." Her simple honesty brought tears to my eyes. "It's been pretty wonderful for me too, sweetheart. Dad says you're staying one more day after we leave," she continued. "What will you do all by yourself?" I smiled down at her. "I'm going to explore the park at my own pace, have a spa treatment at the hotel, and start planning my next adventure." "What next adventure?" she asked, curious. "I've always wanted to see Paris," I told her. "The real one, not just the one in Epcot." "You should go," Lily exclaimed. "And then you can tell me all about it." "Maybe I will," I said, the idea suddenly seeming not just possible but probable. The next morning I stood with the children in the hotel lobby, saying our goodbyes. There were tears, especially from Ella, who clung to me tightly. "I don't want to go home without you, Grandma," she sniffled. I knelt down to her level, wiping a tear from her cheek. "I'll be home very soon, sweetheart. And when I get back, we'll have a special day together, just you and me." This promise seemed to console her, and she finally released her grip on my neck. Bradley approached last, after helping load the family's luggage into their rental cars. "Mom, I can't thank you enough for everything you did to make this trip special for the kids." "It was my pleasure," I said sincerely. "And I want you to know," he continued, "things will be different when we get home. No more exclusions, no more flimsy excuses. You're an important part of our family, and we need to act like it." "I appreciate that, Bradley," I said. "And I'll do my part too, being mindful of boundaries while still being present." After they left, I returned to my suite, which suddenly seemed very quiet without the children's laughter and constant motion. But instead of feeling lonely, I felt strangely peaceful. I walked out onto the balcony, looking out at the park spread below me, families making their way through the gates for another day of magic. My phone chimed with a message from Bradley. "Kids already asking when they can see Grandma again. Let's plan something for the weekend after you get back." I smiled, typing back my agreement. Then I set the phone aside and picked up the room service menu. I ordered myself a decadent breakfast and a mimosa, something I never would have done before this trip. As I waited for my breakfast to arrive, I reflected on the past few days and the lessons they had taught me. I had spent so many years putting everyone else first, accepting exclusion rather than causing waves, that I had forgotten how to stand up for myself. It took this dramatic gesture, this unexpected assertion of my own worth, to break through patterns that had been years in the making. The pain of exclusion had been real, but it had prompted me to action rather than resignation. And that action had led not just to a wonderful Disney experience, but to honest conversations and the beginning of healing in my family relationships. I realized that this trip represented more than just a vacation. It was the start of a new chapter in my life, one where I would balance my devotion to family with healthy self-respect, where I would speak up when needed rather than silently accepting hurt, where I would occasionally use my modest savings for my own joy, not just for others. My final day at Disneyland was spent in peaceful self-indulgence. I enjoyed a leisurely breakfast, explored the park at my own pace, had a massage at the hotel spa, and watched the evening fireworks from my balcony one last time, a glass of wine in hand. Before bed, I did something I'd been contemplating throughout the trip. I booked a 2-week tour of France for the following spring, something I'd dreamed of for decades but never prioritized. The confirmation email gave me a thrill of anticipation, unlike anything I'd felt in years. When I returned home, I found my house filled with flowers, a welcome home banner obviously made by the grandchildren, and a home-cooked meal in the refrigerator with a note from Heather. Welcome home. The children insisted we prepare your favorite meal. Looking forward to our lunch next week. In the months that followed, the promised changes did materialize. Sunday dinners resumed their regular schedule. Heather and I began our bi-weekly lunches, awkward at first but gradually evolving into genuinely enjoyable conversations. Bradley made a point of including me in family decisions and events. There were still occasional tensions, moments when old patterns threatened to resurface. But now there was a foundation of honest communication that allowed us to address issues before they festered into exclusion and hurt feelings. The grandchildren visited regularly, always asking about my upcoming trip to Paris, helping me learn basic French phrases, and suggesting places I should visit. Their excitement for my adventure was heartwarming, a reminder that when we model self-respect and joy in life, we teach our children and grandchildren valuable lessons about their own worth. 6 months after the Disneyland trip, as I prepared for my Paris adventure, I realized how profoundly that experience had changed me. The woman who had once accepted exclusion with quiet hurt had discovered her voice, her worth, and her courage. The grandmother who had always put others first had learned that occasionally putting herself first made her a better, happier person for those she loved. Life will always have its challenges, its hurts, and its disappointments. Relationships, especially family ones, are complex and imperfect. But I learned that standing up for yourself doesn't have to mean conflict or drama. Sometimes it just means showing up, literally and figuratively, and claiming your rightful place at the table, or in my case, at Disneyland. So if you're facing exclusion or feeling undervalued by those you love, remember my story. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to be sidelined, to book your own metaphorical luxury suite and VIP tour, and to show up with dignity and love. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself with family members? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if you found value in my experience, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, it's never too late to teach people how to treat you, and it's never too late to begin a new chapter in your own story. Thank you for listening, and may you find the courage to claim your place in the magic of your own life.